Hello and welcome to this series of instructional videos on AECOsim Building Designer V8i. In this session, we're going to be looking at doors, and we're going to be looking at the placement, the editing, the modification of them, as well as windows. And we'll be copying, editing, mirroring, modifying, everything to do with windows. And at the end of all this, we'll be looking at the annotation of and looking at drawing rules very quickly. So to begin with, let's have a look at our model. Here we have A_ground int.dgn. We have our spaces and our internal walls. And now what we want to do is we want to start filtering out some of this information because we need to see it in a little bit more clearer light. To do this, we're going to press Control E. Inside of level display, you'll see the A area there is in green. If it's green, it means it's a default level. We can't turn it off. So we just double click on another one and then we're going to turn off. After that, what we're going to do now is going to start really flexing the muscles, the back office muscles of Building Designer, because instead of going through and recreating material and data, we're going to use material that was there before. What do I mean? Quite simply is, do you remember the architectural master file that we created? We're going to be using its technical data to help us out with the placement of doors and windows. How? Let's go across to Project Explorer next to our task-based interface, and in there, come to Building Models and twirl that down, and twirl down Design Models. Then come down to Underbar Master Low-Rise Scheme, right-click on that and say Place Model. The Reference Attachment Settings dialog box appears, and all we need to do is make sure that nesting is off, in other words, no nesting, and we can just click OK. Nothing seems to have changed too much, except you can see in our isometric and in our elevation over here in view 2 and view 3, we're starting to bring in the markers that defined the floors, the dynamic views of our various floors that we asked it to cut for us way back when. In our top view though, we don't. The reason for this is because they've been turned off temporarily. How? By something called View Attributes, which is up here always in the top left-hand corner of your views. Or you can just press Control B on your keyboard. Once View Attributes is open, make sure you have markers checked, and straight away you can see in our top view now that we have our markers. We can close that because what we need to do, we need to come across to our markers, and what we can do is come to this icon just below it called Apply Plan View. You'll see it looks a lot different. This is almost how it looks. In fact, it is how it's going to look when you place it on a sheet. You have the hatching of your materials. You have the outlines, we have the grid there that's been slightly faded into the background, but is there to guide us. And what we're going to do now is utilize these different ways of looking at things to place our doors. So to begin with, we're going to go across to our task-based interface to Architectural Design, 5 down, first icon in, Place Door. The Place Door dialog box opens and it consists of 4 basic parts. Icons along the top, don't worry about those just yet. A preview of our door or opening, the name of the opening below that, and to the right hand side the parameters and values which drive that graphic. You can play with this graphic to some extent by changing its placement point here in how you wish to. Underneath this you can just hover over here, and if you do that, click on that, you have a jump box which gives you the whole list of doors open to you in your project. This is the default installation of Building Designer, and there's quite a number of options here for you. We only need one, and the one that we need is called HM Underbar Drywall Flush. So we're going to come back up here, Drywall Flush. Notice how the preview changes for us. We've now, instead of just an opening, we've now got a leaf and an arc and the opening indicator on the 3D as well. You can see here on the right hand side though, there's a great deal of values and parameters that you can change to suit your design work. The first one is going to be the dimension frame depth. And we can choose by clicking on the parameters, any number of values that we may have either A, stored, or B, used in the past. Or we could just go to the automated one of match the wall. We're going to scroll down a little bit here because we want to come down to our side offset. And in our side offset, we're going to be choosing 4 inches. So when I place this from a corner, it's always going to offset itself 4 inches. And with that, you can see as we scroll down, you can put in any number of values here. The list is extremely complete. But with the 2 values that we've changed, we're now going to go and zoom in, and we're going to actually place that door. So we're going to come up to our top of our view into our navigation bar, and we're going to go to Window Area. We're going to come down to this area just here. And without changing out the tool, we're going to come into the same area in our isometric. Just right click to reset, and your tool of place door is still there for you to use. To place a door, once you have selected the door, once you've changed it in the parameters, if you move your cursor off and you select the wall, what you've done now is you've locked the door to that wall. What we need to do now is give it a placement point, and we want to place it 4 inches off this corner. So AccuDraw and AccuSnap helping us out here. We click once, and you can see the door automatically appears on our cursor. We can move our cursor up and down to change the placement of the door. Once we've got it inside our room that we want, in this case a women's bathroom, we can click once more, and now you can see we can choose which way the leaf swings out or in, preferably in, and we can click. And there we have it, offset 4 inches from the corner point that we set out, and our door is set. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be placing a far more complex door system that's going to include a lot more items in it. To do that though, we come to our Place Door dialog, we're going to click on this jump box here, and we're going to scroll down through the complete set of default delivered door styles to hollow metal, side light, transom, full glass, double. And it's quite an assembly. You can see straight away the placement point that we need is smack bang in the center. You can change those, of course, by just clicking on any of the red cubes, and when you do that, they will change to the green sphere. We're going to change that back just there. Also, we're going to change some of the parameters. To begin with, we're going to change the dimension frame depth. We're going to say match wall, and we're going to change the dimension frame head plus, which is going to change the height of the transom. You can see here I've got a history of a certain amount. Let's be changed to 1.2. You can see immediately the preview updates to reflect that. We're actually going to take it back to 2 feet. We're also then going to look at the dimension frame hinge plus side, and for this we're going to enter in 2 feet 7.5, and also on the other side dimension frame strike plus is also going to be 2 feet 7.5. And now we have equality all around. But let's go even further, because we're going to scroll down here and you can see absolutely everything that's here. We're going to come to our leaf 1 angle. I'm going to click on there. I'm going to say 45 degrees, and my leaf 2 is going to be 45 degrees. Again, our preview's updating for us immediately. So now that we have created our door, all that needs to be done is to place it. And we need to place it exactly in the middle of our 2 grid lines. Ordinarily, that might take you most of the day, but with Building Designer, it's an absolute cinch. How do I do that? Well, here's my door in assembly. I'm going to come across here. First off, obviously I want to lock it to the various plane that I want to design in. Secondly, I want to come to this grid line here. I'm going to press I for intersection, and I'm going to place a tentative point with my mouse. After that, I'm going to press O on the keyboard, and I'm going to drag across and to this point here, and I'm going to press another tentative. And now, not only have I been using AccuDraw, but AccuDraw has some other hidden qualities, because I can now use this as a calculator. We have a 12-foot bay. I'm going to use the divisor symbol on my keyboard, and I'm going to divide it in 2, and then hit enter. And you can see now that we have a perfectly centered door in this bay. Click once more, and there it is. Right click to reset, and there you can see in the isometric the doorway, the transoms, the side lights, and in my plan view you can see that I have other controls over it because I have the leaf at 45 degrees. So what else can we do with doors? Well, quite simply, I can take this door assembly, I can right click on it and say copy, for instance, come to our placement point, which is in the center, and just click once more with our left mouse, move it in a right direction and enter 12 into AccuDraw and click once. And now we have 2 of those door assemblies, as you can see in your isometric, side by side, ready and roaring to go. Now, once we've done that though, I can select one, hold down my control key, select both of them. Now I can right click and I can mirror them around a point. I can mirror them either about a horizontal, a vertical, or an actual user-defined line. I can make a copy, and I can also mirror them about a center. In this case, we're just going to slot them beautifully into here. And now I've placed another 2 doors, right click to reset, place another 2 door assemblies, so very quickly, so very powerfully and efficiently. What we need to do here is add the information about for the labels for our scheduling and for identification. So we're going to right click over our door and choose modify door. The modify door dialog box opens for us, and we need to scroll down throughout all of these parameters, both the physical ones that drive the window and the additional ones that we can add. We need to come down all the way down to something called item ID. Make sure you have a checkbox in the active, and in the value, if you click once, we're going to add a value. We're going to add the first floor, the room number, and which number of door it is, in this case A. This is the nomenclature we're going to be using. With that, all I have to do is hit the enter key, and to actually imbue that information into our database running in the background, just click once in my design model. But you may be asking, where is this particular nomenclature adding up? We're going to see that in just a second. But before we leave these doors, there's one common facility that doors and windows have, and that is they're suspect to change. And when they are changed, maybe they need to be changed more than one each time. Building Designer gives you that, because what we're going to do is we're going to add parameters or alter parameters across these. So for instance, if we select one of our doors and we're going to select the one below it in our top, we're going to right click, and in this case we're not going to see some of the commands that are available to us for doors like handing, direction, swing, and things like that. We're going to choose modify instance data. The modify door dialog box opens up. Now this is going to modify the values for all of those items that are selected, and in this case we want to give ourselves a little bit more dynamic look, because what we're going to do here is we're going to put check marks against our 3D angles, and then we're going to check the fields and say 90 and 90. Once we've done that, take a look in your isometric window, because once you click in the view, you'll notice how Building Designer gives you complete control, independent control over each different view that you have open. Let's go in here once more, select this other file here, right click, modify instance data, and in this case we'll alter in the 2D as well. So we're going to come in here, say 90 degrees there and 90 degrees there, and we're going to click. And there we have it. It's so very powerful, so very simple, and so very efficient. What we need to do now is to come back and fit our view in our top, probably get open view attributes, which is Control B, and turn on markers. Once we do that, we can close down view attributes, but we can float our cursor over the marker point, come to our ground floor plan, and then say open. So Building Designer switches out to our actual plan view, the one that will look as when we print it out. You can see that we have windows. We can see we have doors. You can see that we have our double doors here with our transoms and sidelights, and you can see that we have our markers, and we can zoom in on those. But the fact is, we may actually want to change some of the parameters of this. For instance, the text doesn't really fit inside the label. To do that, we can come across to our drawing composition tab in our task-based interface, third row down, third icon in, set reference presentation, and we can click any of the objects in our file. With that, opens up reference presentation, and in the building section, these are the rules section here. This is how it governs how it looks. Click on the architecture, select doors, and come to this icon, modify rule. Inside the drawing rules, again, highlight door and click on modify. And you can see here that we can actually use different annotation cells and any offsets you require when you need it. You can see by default we have the default annotation assignment here, and that is currently checked. Uncheck it, and now we become active as to how we want to use it. So we could come in here and say door ID ellipse, and then we can say save, update. We can close this down, and when we do that, we just pan down here, because you can now see all of our doors now have well-fitting, well-labeled, clearly labeled doors, numbers, and their actual item numbers for scheduling, and be able to differentiate them for the estimator and for ourselves when we look over it and our project team. The power of drawing rules, the placement of doors and windows, the modification of them individually and as a group, and the ability to have self-updating reference files is all part of AECOsim Building Designer V8i. Thank you very much.